Okay, Andrew, you want to go ahead and kick it off for us?
Yep, let's get it started. Thanks, Kelly. All right, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining and welcome to the Unlocking Private Cloud webinar presented by 27 Virtual with special guests from Dell and VMware. We're going to get started. We're going to talk about VMware Cloud Foundation on VxRail, and we're going to have our guests, Doug Yablonsky and Willis Rains, Doug from VMware, Will from Dell Technologies, talking to us today about these. And then you've also got me, Andrew Grismore, where we're going to go over the 27 virtual capabilities in relation to VCF and VxRail. So let's go ahead and get started. So just a little bit about 27 Virtual. We have been a trusted VMware partner since 2008. So we really want to focus in here on the more advanced capabilities from the VMware perspective. So we're talking NSX, vRealize Suite, vSAN, of course, vSphere as the base, but we really focus in on those more advanced capabilities. And the nice thing is that we've actually been involved with NSX from the very beginning. So since the actual acquisition of Nicira started, we were some of the people who were out there actually training the SEs from the VMware perspective on how all of this works. We've written the courseware on NSX. We've done multiple engagements when it comes to NSXV and NSXT, as well as the vRealize Suite. So that's a little bit about us. We'll talk a little bit more about 27 Virtual toward the end, but we are one of the trusted VMware partners when it comes to these kinds of services. A little bit of housekeeping. You guys will receive a link to today's recording. So this is being recorded. Right now, you guys are in participant mode. So all of you attendees out there, your microphones are muted. But what we're going to do is at the end of the presentation, we're going to have a Q&A session where you'll be able to unmute those microphones and have a conversation with us toward the end. But in the meantime, if you do have a question, there's a Q&A window and you can ask your questions in there, and we highly encourage it. Feel free to ask a question anytime throughout the presentation. There's also going to be a survey. So when the Zoom session ends, you're going to be pulled to a link to a survey. And we please ask you to fill out that short survey. It gives us a feel for what we're doing well, what we can do better, and get to know you guys a little bit as well. So with that, I'm going to pass the presentation over to Willis Rains from Dell. He is an SE from the Dell Technologies side, and he's going to get us started in this conversation. So Will, take it away.
Thanks, Andrew, and appreciate the invitation to come and collaborate as we have done in the past with some of our other customers. So we thanks for the opportunity here. So I wanted to take a couple minutes and set the context, sort of the framework of this conversation. And I think of this, and this what you're looking at is multiple pieces, parts, components of a Honda Genesis, right? That's something that I'm sure most people, or at least some people, would have the capability to actually put it together. Obviously, that will require lots of time, lots of effort. I like to think of it in the sense of absolutely some technical debt, sort of that constructing IT. What we want to do is show you how collaborating Dell, VMware, and 27 Virtual on how we can deliver more of a consume option where we're actually delivering the car to you so that you can realize the outcomes for your business sooner rather than later, right? Taking that technical debt away from you. If you can go to the next slide. So in that idea, the shift that's happening, that where we're helping our customers, everybody, just with the evolution of where IT is and the industry is on a journey, right? And whether that is you're going to be implementing all public cloud, some public cloud, like the operating model in the sense of cloud is our opinion. And in that process, where we're helping our customers and want to talk about today is how do we begin to start consuming IT, right? Moving from the left over to the right. So less constructing IT, less building the car, more buying the car, so we can focus on the needs of the business. And there is no other way, no better way to do that than defining the data center with software, right? Or by software. Once we have the data center defined by software, there are a lot of creative things we can do to actually enable and realize those outcomes sooner. So Doug is going to take it from here and kind of talk about the software that we'll come back in and talk about the hardware as well.
All right. Thank you, Willis. So I'm going to start that. First off, thanks for joining today. My name is Doug Yablonsky. I'm a senior solutions engineer for VMware with the Network and Security Business Unit. But today I'm going to talk about the Virtual Cloud Foundation overall. And to kick it off, I'm going to start about deploying an app circa 2005, about 15 years ago. And at that time, I was a network administrator and information security officer for a large New York City agency. And they came to me one day and they said, hey, we need to deploy an app. And this app was public facing. And if there was any issues with that app, the city faced millions of dollars in lawsuits. So they hired a guy to hire a company, and he came in and he said, okay, this is what we're going to need from you as far as the hardware goes, the infrastructure to support this application. Now, mind you, we've had racks and racks of servers. This was back in the one server, one app days. We had racks and racks of servers, but we couldn't use it because this had to be high performance. And for security reasons, it needed to be separated from the rest of the environment. So we needed to invest in new hardware, switches. I need new switches. My firewall was full, no extra capacity. Needed to get load balancers. Didn't use load balancers at the time, so I had to go out and spec load balancers. View the different vendors, come back, and then we had to buy servers. We had to go out there. We needed a web front end. We needed an app tier, and we needed to build a database tier. So all told, about $500,000 in equipment, and took us about 6 months to procure all this. Now, the thing is, at about 3 months, this guy came back and said, hey, I'm ready to start testing. So, what could we do? We said, well, we don't have the equipment yet. You have to wait and sit around. So about 3 months, once again, we're on the liability for not having this thing ready to go. Couldn't do it. If you'd fast forward today, this guy would say, well, I do have an option. I could grab my credit card and I could go to somebody like, say, AWS, and I could go in there and I could spin up all these different things, right? So what does this tell us? That in this day and age, modern business applications require a cloud architecture, okay? And when I say cloud, it is not a place. It is an operating model, right? It's not someone else's equipment. It could be yours. It could be someone else's equipment. It could be your equipment. It could be a new VxRail high-performance HCI infrastructure. And what is the cloud architecture? You need consistent infrastructure. Be able to support the VMs that you're using today, but also be ready for the containers. I'm not sure if any of you are using containers or looking at containers, but they are here. They're widespread use right now. And it is changing the way you deliver networking, security, storage, and all your other services in the software and in the data center in general. Consistent operations. If I move from a public cloud to into my data center or move workloads out to the edge, do I have consistent security? Do I have consistent networking? Do I have to make changes? Do I have to go to 3 different groups every time I want to move something? Or is that built in to the application itself to allow for this mobility, recovery, disaster recovery, whatever may happen? All this leads into a consumable user developer experience. If somebody needs some resources, they should simply fill out a form, request it, whether it's approved or, the approval process, you hit a button, approve it, it's deployed. No running in there. If you go out to AWS and requesting, some compute, some storage, some network, some security, no one's running around racking up a box, plugging in cables, right? All automated. You can have that same capabilities. And the way you can have it is with the VMware Cloud Foundation, right? We're a full stack approach. We're talking about compute, storage, network management, all part of the Cloud Foundation. Tested and validated. We're used in over 4,000 cloud providers, names such as Rackspace, IBM Software. So Cloud Foundation is the basis of their offering for their cloud customers. So highly tested, highly validated. This has been proven, over and over again out in the field every day. Apps, services, information automation. The days are running, going from box to box, doing a CLI, making a mistake, going back, correcting it, manual errors. I mean, you can't afford that nowadays. If you're not first to market a lot of times, or if you're too late, you're missing a boat. You're costing your organization a lot of money. Once again, all this leads to a simplified experience where you're not worry about the mundane tasks of just keeping things up and running, but can now look at optimizing things, making sure that everything's running the best it can. Built-in security. Security now it's an afterthought. It's bolted on. With a software-defined data center provided by the Cloud Foundation, as virtual machines come up, as containers, as portions of containers come up, security is built in. As you move these virtual machines and portions of a containerized app from a public cloud to the data center, across your data centers, across racks, security moves with it. So every time there's a move, there's a change. In a DR situation, you have the same DR. Same networking. You have the same security. Built in, not bolted on. And how do we provide Cloud Foundation? Well, we use basically the parts that many of you are familiar with and some may be new to you, but basically it breaks down into vSphere, right? We all know vSphere revolutionized the industry. Now available not just for VMs, but also container-based. So, we can have the same thing running on the same equipment. The idea is as you transition into new technologies, new paradigms and ways of doing things, Cloud Foundation is there ready to support you. vSAN, HCI-based storage. You're buying a new HCI-based infrastructure. Why not take advantage of those solid-state drives built into those hosts and get a high-performance distributed storage architecture? Networking with NSX. We can create entire networks, load balancers, routers, switches, firewalls. We can create them all in software, abstract it from the underlying physical hardware. What does that mean? Every time you want to add something, every time someone needs resources, they don't have to go to network guys and say, make changes to your network, right? Your network guys should love this because they have their network, they keep it as long as it's passing packets. You can create hundreds, thousands of different types of networks on top of it. So we abstract that away. All these different parts, you have to manage it, right? So we have the VxRail management suite, and we go in once again, make sure that everything's operating optimally. In fact, now we have intelligent operations. We're embedding machine learning into this platform. So now it will look at what's going on its own and make recommendations depending on your comfort level with it. It will optimize your data center, making sure you're getting the most usage out of your hardware that you purchased. Now, all this, when you have all these different moving parts, you have to have some kind of life cycle automation. You want to make sure that everything, the care and feeding of it is maintained, it's done properly. We'll get right back to that in a minute. But before I get onto that, I just kind of want to talk. Now, we had the developer guy, and he came in and he kind of drew me this picture of this application of how it's going to work. The different tiers. He said we're going to need some networking, we're going to need some storage, we're going to need some security. When he did that, if I had Cloud Foundation running at the time, I could have gone in, or he could have gone, and I could have showed him how to do it. Type in his drawing, put the blueprint into something like VRealize automation, and have this thing up within an hour. So he would have been waiting. We would have been waiting on him for 3 months instead of the vice versa of him waiting on us for 3 months. So that is the power. Just think about it. The same way as you go out to an AWS or an Azure. Right? You go out there, you expect these things to happen. You can have that power. It's available to you with Cloud Foundation. Now there are, coming back to lifecycle management, there are a lot of different parts, the NSX, vSAN, vSphere. If you upgrade your vSAN, you don't want it impacting anything on your NSX and vice versa and stuff like that. So what we do is we have the lifecycle manager. So as different upgrades come out, we can, it's a one-click, make sure that all your software is being upgraded at the same time without impacting the other pieces of the pieces of the platform. what's even better about this is if you use a co-engineered solution like VxRail, not only can you manage the software, but you can also start to manage the hardware at the same time, making management and upgrading of the whole platform extremely simple. And to get into details about that, I'm going to pass it back over to Willis.
Absolutely. Thank you, Doug, for that. If you think about all of those software pieces and parts, right, and the life cycle management and what it brings to your organization, right, the amount of technical debt that it removes because we're moving everything up into the software stack, you got to be excited. At least it's exciting for me and a lot of my customers that we're talking with. At the same time, you have to remember that, well, it's got to run on hardware somewhere. And I don't want to, have a bunch of technical debt underneath the powerful software that's delivering that cloud operating model on-prem. So just like we have a software bundle, easy, what I like to call easy click upgrades, right? For the software, we also have the same thing when we start talking about things like the VxRail or hyperconverged infrastructure. If you can build this out a little bit for me, Doug. So you'll see where we're taking scheduled updates and building them out, all right, pointing them to the VxRail manager, and we'll explain what that is in a little bit, but eventually getting you to a place where when you're managing your data center is more to the field, almost like your cell phone, right? You see an update that comes to your cell phone. You don't necessarily go and double check and look at the network card or any of the components within the actual cell phone or chunk of metal device that you have, right? You don't go and check every application, ensure that it's going to be okay because it's coming from a known trusted place. In worst case, if you have a problem, you know where you can go and get support for that. Next slide, please. So back to the story that we're having, the software-defined discussion is there with the hardware coming in. If you build out the next part, you'll see Dell Technologies, the way we collaborate, we can do this several ways, right? Taking that software and put that across either our converged platforms or our hyperconverged platforms. Today, we want to in particular talk about the VxRail platform and what it brings and where we're seeing it help a lot of our customers. So when I talk about VxRail, I like to bring up a few key things that are very attractive to my customers. If I go back to when I've actually been a customer a lot longer on the customer side of the house, a lot longer than I have been here on the Dell side of the house selling. So I go back to, I'm very focused on the day two operational things and what is going to happen after this thing is installed and you guys go away, right? So that's where the strength from a hardware perspective of VxRail comes in. It is a platform that is also software defined to where when I'm doing things like going from vSphere version 6.7 to 7.0 or whatever I'm updating, maybe it's not even a vSphere upgrade. Maybe I just need to upgrade the drivers for my actual hard drives in it or the NIC firmware, right? Any of those components in that hardware, those updates are going to come from Dell Technologies, known and trusted. If we can go to the next slide, you'll also be able to see, right? Just like before when we were talking about being able to consume. Worst case, right? Because we know there's Murphy's Law. Fortunately, because we do a ton of testing, we're not seeing that as failures or issues often, but in the few cases that we do, you can find comfort in knowing that, hey, I have a single place to go and figure out where my problem is. Is it in the software stack? Is it in the chunk of metal? Is it the card that I'm using? Is it the NIC card? Is it the HBA? Where is the problem? You have one place to go. And when you're doing those updates and taking, hey, this is the upgrade we want to go to your change management window, you're knowing, hey, you're downloading the last update and you get all the information from Dell and VMware collaborating saying, here's how we're getting to that next version. Here's what's changing and about the environment. And of course, Dell and VMware has already tested this. Next slide. Another great benefit that we like to talk about from a VxRail perspective is the scalability, right? most customers are not realizing a place where they can just replace everything in the data center, sort of like a greenfield approach. I got my storage budget one year and maybe compute the following, and maybe networking was the prior year. So how do I begin to realize this? How soon can I start taking advantage of this type of a solution? The good thing is you can start really small, maybe start with a workload, but start working in the direction of this software-defined data center on top of your HCI, right? We can start small, and then when we get ready to scale, we can add another node that will include both compute, RAM, and storage. We can also, in our scalability capabilities, be able to just add single drives. Maybe I just want to add a workload to my existing environment and they only need capacity. I have enough compute, I have enough RAM, I don't need any more of those resources, but I have some available slots. Let me just add those drives. And we make all of that very easy and simple inside of the Rail Manager, and what you'll see here in a minute with the software-defined data center manager. Another thing that goes away the more we drive down that software-defined, creating that cloud operating model, is forklift upgrades. Now, I don't have to worry about doing these major forklift upgrades or data migrations every 3 or 5 years, whatever your refresh cycle is from a storage array perspective. You'll begin to get the feel from both the storage and the compute, the same feel that many you guys are realizing today when it comes to going to the next piece or version of hardware from your server perspective or your ESXi perspective, right? You know and love your vSphere. When you're ready to go to the latest version from 13G to 14G servers, there is no concern. You just bring the host, put them in the same cluster, maybe do things like enable EVC mode or whatever before you extract, but you're not really concerned about compatibility and the technical debt of extracting hosts. That same feel will be realized with HCI and something like VxRail, and now including storage. And here's where the integration comes together. So all the software goodness that Doug was talking through, from the VRail suite, the NSX from a networking perspective, all of the things that's making our data center software defined, but it can't run on thin air, has to run on hardware. The software defined data center manager that you can see up and to the left with the sort of the green circle, that is the integration point into the VxRail. So you're asking yourself, so wait, so I got to manage the VxRail separate from the vSphere software? No, the software defined data center manager is there with what we call the day zero. So the deployment process will go through the SDDC manager, and the ongoing, the day 2 operational things that we need to do to get to the next version would also be handled in the SDDC manager. So I log into my SDDC manager and say, hey, I need to get to the latest version of what? And the manager will tell you, yes, okay, so vSphere is okay, ESXi is okay, but we need to touch some of the chunks of metal. We need to upgrade the firmware for the drivers. All of that, single click, easy upgrades for you and your team, giving you time to go back and spend with the application side of the house or the business units, driving the value of the business forward. And I like to share this as an example because most of our customers who are looking into HCI or just trying to create that cloud model, right? Cloud is an operating model. Hybrid cloud, we know, is the story, right? Having something on and off-prem. But from an on-premise perspective, they're looking at it and they're having more of a workload or a data-driven conversation, right? I want to have a separate cluster for maybe my VDI environment, right? Or maybe I have a really large database or general purpose VMware environment that I want to keep separate from VDI because VDI needs GPUs and things like that. However you want to carve that up, the good thing is you can do that. You have complete control over that, but it's not like it would be adding technical debt to what you're doing. this can still be managed from one place by the SDDC manager, so that you're knowing which cluster you're upgrading and what's happening and what level everything is on in your entire environment. And with that, Andrew is going to take it from here to help you understand how we are collaborating with 27 Virtual to help get to that consumption model, right? So when we're delivering, if you will, the car as a complete whole to you, you can actually know how to effectively use that and drive the business forward.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Will. Thanks, Doug, for handing this off to me. I really appreciate it. And again, thank you guys all for being here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at, again, that 27 Virtual. How do we bring this all together? How do we put the picture together? And as we do get into that, I just want to start off with a quick little story. So like Will mentioned, I'm going to help us get this car moving. So what you guys have seen already in the past 30 minutes or so is that between Dell Technologies and VMware, you guys have the ability to purchase that put together car. You don't have to worry about all the pieces and parts, how it was built at the factory, all the technology that goes into it. That's going to be taken care of for you. So I want to talk about driving it. And I think that a good place to start is a little story from Las Vegas. And really a lot of what I'm going to talk about actually does take place in Las Vegas, because we have a customer that I'm going to give you guys an example of how we work together with these technologies to change their organization. But let's start off with a really cool thing that you can do in Las Vegas, which is called Dream Car Racing, where you can essentially go to one of the tracks that they have outside of the city in the desert, and you can use and rent these supercars like Lamborghinis, Ferraris, so on and so forth, to take on track and drive yourself. So they give you some lessons, you hop in the car, you get onto the track, and you try and get your best possible time. Well, never having been in the driver's seat of one of these cars before, what I very quickly came to realize is that, yes, even though I know how to drive, and I would say at a very amateur level, I didn't really understand what I was getting myself into when I hopped into that brand new Ferrari that I was about to take around the track. And very quickly I came to see, well, the way you change gears is different. The way you drive is different. There are all these buttons in a car that I've never seen before in this Ferrari. And that's kind of what you're getting when you get into the VxRail VCF conversation. You now have this platform, this put together car with all these brand new capabilities that you may not even have known could exist and work in the way that they do for that platform. And it's the same kind of experience. So when you get into that Lamborghini or that Ferrari for the first time at Dream Car Racing, you're saying, okay, I want to at the very least beat my friends in the lap time. You're probably not going to come anywhere close to getting the fastest lap time because you're not a professional in that situation, and it's just not something that you've experienced before. So yeah, you've seen some of these things, you know how to hit the gas and it feels good and everything is looking shiny, but you really need to understand how to get the most out of those capabilities and figure out what's going on with all the new things in there. So sticking with the story of Las Vegas and that idea of the car, let's talk about a customer that we have in Las Vegas. So while we were out working with these customers, we were able to go do the Dream Car Racing experience, and it was fun. But the real goal was to change the model and really transform the way this hotel and casino, so our customer was one of the more prominent hotel casinos on the Las Vegas Strip, change what they did from a technological perspective as well as an operational perspective so that they could utilize this solution that they bought. So they went with VxRail, they went with VCF, and they said, okay, now we have all of these new things. We're not too familiar with the NSX side and what we need to do as far as our workload and our management domains and the tier 1s and the tier 0s and all of that goes with the NSX and the vRealize suite and automating the processes that they need. So what were the goals of this customer? When we went in, they said, we've got this awesome new car, we've got the VxRail VCF, this is what we want to do with it. And the two applications that they were focused on were the two things you would associate with a hotel and casino. The room booking management software and the slot machine management software. And if you think about it, these hotels and casinos, they're really software companies. Can you think of another organization that's as reliant on software when it comes to their, like, these slot machines on a per second basis, making sure that those are up and running, directly affecting the amount of revenue that these casinos are making? It's very, very software focused. So they had issues in that the booking platform for their hotel, the slot machine management platform that they were using, those applications were really complex, and they needed a way to be able to deliver updates, upgrades, additional capabilities for those applications faster. The problem was that those pieces of software, again, were really complicated. They integrated with 10, 20, 30 other applications to be able to function. And there just wasn't a clean way for them to be able to transform and utilize those applications in a better, faster way, the way that they were doing things in their old platform. So this is where 27 Virtual comes in. This is our game, is to hop in and say, awesome, you've bought the Ferrari. There's all kinds of things that you can do with it. Let's help you drive this thing to its maximum potential. Let's get you that fastest lap time. Let's get those applications pushed out faster, make resources available to the consumers of your IT resources, and go from there. So we really specialize and we focus in on the networking, the security, the automation, the cloud native capabilities that we have once we've put all those layers of abstraction in that Doug and Will have already talked about with you guys. So that's where our experience lies, and that's how we come together with Dell and VMware to really get the most out of what you're trying to use and what you're trying to accomplish. So again, the software-defined networking and security, something that many customers may not have experience with. And when you get the VCF platform deployed, yes, it's there for you, but you still have to make sure that your edges are doing what you want, that your routing is doing what you want it to do from a tier 1, tier 0, BGP's perspective, load balancing, all of that in there. From a security perspective, utilizing the distributed firewall, utilizing IDS, IPS capabilities, any third-party integration that you may be using from the security side, so that security is not an afterthought, but actually built in, just like Doug was talking about, and actually using the software-defined networking and security as a part of your vRealize suite. So taking advantage of vRealize Network Insight, vRealize Operations, and especially for this customer on the Vegas Strip, the vRealize automation capabilities that are in that vRealize suite. So utilizing the software-defined storage with vSAN, the NSX capabilities, the VRA capabilities, we were able to automate the deployment of the resources for the consumers of IT that previously were really difficult to provide, and we were able to allow them to scale that out. So not only support the 2 applications that they were struggling the most with, but with the ability to scale out across multiple other applications and do the same kind of thing because the model was already there. Again, all of this is possible because we are virtualizing in as many places as we possibly can, and we don't have to worry as much about the actual physical infrastructure and even the individual pieces of software that make up VCF as much anymore, because it's all put together for you. That's the whole point of this platform. So let's think about where this organization started, where this hotel and casino started, and where they ended up after they worked with 27 Virtual. So what we saw is that as far as a platform goes, their technology and tooling was antiquated. So antiquated hardware, antiquated tools to allow them to provide the resources to the people who needed them so that they could better utilize the applications that they were trying to push out for their customers. So that was the initial problem, is we need something that works better to get us where we need to be. And eventually that would be the reason they went with the VCF VxRail. So that is the first piece of it. But because they're struggling in that realm, it directly translates to the business processes they were using so that they could actually take advantage of this. So the processes become slow and error prone because we now have to have this narrow-minded look of, well, we need to focus on creating a VLAN, or we need to focus on carving out some storage in this LUN, or providing a virtual machine based off of a template. we should be able to do all of that in one go and make it faster, but they couldn't because of the technology that they were using at the time. And those processes then directly translate to how people view what's going on in the organization. So if your processes denote that, hey, we need to create this VLAN, and that VLAN has a process of whoever needs it puts in a ticket. We think about it for a week, we look at it, we realize there are other things that are more important, and we don't actually create that VLAN until a week or two later to get through all the red tape, the management, the change control meeting. You can see how these things build upon each other so that the people really can't accomplish anything other than what their silo says this is what you have the ability to do. And we want organizations to be more cloud-like so that you're not being held back in this way. So what we see is that we move toward this end state. We can move toward a better platform, the VxRail platform. We can make it so that by utilizing all the technologies and the software-defined capabilities from a storage, network, compute perspective, and then the automation piece on top of that, make it so that we are delivering what the organization needs faster and in a more standardized way, because again, we're not focused on what's going on in the underlying infrastructure. We're able to provide that essentially as a service. And what we did with VRA is create that self-service portal so that the consumers of those resources no longer have to wait on IT. They just go to their self-service portal, say, I need this, this, and that, and they actually get it. And that changes the way that the organization actually thinks about what's going on, because now the teams, they're less focused on what's going on in the underlying infrastructure. They can focus now in the more virtualized world, which leads to a change in thought and a change of organization of the teams to be more cloud-like, so that they are focused on the end result, not just on keeping the lights on, focusing on innovation instead. So that's the idea behind this, is for us to come in, for 27 Virtual to come in and say, hey, you've bought the car, you have all these new buttons, a different way of changing gears, a different way of being able to handle everything that's being thrown at you. You can go faster. Here's how you can get it done. And here's a way for you to work with us, learn with us, so that when we leave, you can be the ones that are getting those faster lap times, so that you are the one that are beating all of your competitors when it comes to being first to market. And that directly translates to the business doing better, customer experience improving, more innovation, because it's not a focus on keeping the lights on anymore. It's a focus on how do we do better, new revenue channels. It's a faster time to market. All of these are a direct result of the change coming from the platform that you're using and an understanding of how that works and how it's going to change your process and the way that your organization functions with people that are involved. So that just gives you an idea of what they were able to accomplish. They started automating, they started providing those resources, and it's because they went with that platform and they utilized our capabilities and services from a 27 Virtual perspective. So that's our story. And if you guys have any questions, we are going to open up the webinar. I know we didn't get any questions in the Q&A section just yet. So if you have any questions or you want to have a little bit of a conversation, please stick around. But thank you so much for being here today. Also, huge shout out and thank you to Doug and Will from VMware and Dell Technologies. We want you to be able to work with the three of us to put this kind of solution together. The story really makes sense as we begin to combine all three of our capabilities in this solution to get you to where you want to be. Yep, so if you guys want to ask a question, feel free to raise your hand, and then we should be able to click on the allow to talk, which lets you unmute your microphones and have a little bit of a conversation with us. So feel free to raise your hand in the Zoom window, and we'll allow for a Q&A session. All right. In the meantime, while you guys check this out, please remember to fill out the survey at the end. Please if you want to get in touch with us, go through brent.kaplan@27virtual.com. We'd love to have that conversation with you. We can get you in touch with the Dell, the VMware, the 27 virtual teams that can allow for what we've seen in this webinar to take place for your organization specifically. I see a hand up. So Brian, can you?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Hey, afternoon. Appreciate the session today. I had a question. We have so many customers, trying to figure out their cloud strategy, and obviously this solution between VMware and Dell is so unique to help customers out trying to figure that out. I was just wondering if you could provide some context of customers that are trying to go all in cloud or customers that are looking to potentially go all in cloud. Where does this platform fit in?
Yeah, sure. I can. You want to go?
You want me to take a stab?
Yeah,
I'll take a stab at it. Right. So, in our opinion, most of our customers, and not just ours, if you look at IDC and the likes, what you'll find is customers that are interested are mostly it's because of the technical debt that they naturally, or I should say, when I say they, the application side of the house, the developer side of the house, if they're experiencing a lot of friction when it comes to IT, right? Being able to deliver quickly, that's normally where we see it. So where I would say this fits is this helps a customer say, okay, I can answer when I say cloud to the operating model, and I can also help when we think about the VMware Cloud Foundation as a to help create that hybrid cloud strategy. We can actually enable a customer's ability to move to the public cloud. So if they're dead set on it's absolutely going to be public cloud, okay, what route do you want to take? The route of replatforming applications, meaning I'm going to take whatever number of applications that they have, and I'm going to refactor those applications to fit into something like AWS. Customers are doing that, but if you look at the percentage of customers that are repatriating, either coming back on-prem or realizing some workloads make sense off-prem, some workloads make sense on-prem, some workloads make sense in AWS, others make more sense in Azure or GCP. So when you have all of that and all of that disparate technical debt, the whole point of going to the cloud to be more agile and more flexible and quicker to market starts to wane quickly, or if we don't go the right way. So like our story is not anti-public cloud. It's if you're going to go public cloud, the best route to go is a consistent management platform. So I can manage my security, I can manage my policies, the governance around what's happening in whatever public cloud strategy, coupled with what I'm doing on-prem. Does that answer?
Yep, I appreciate it.
And if I could add to that a little bit, with the whole talk about, we're going all into public cloud, I sometimes wonder who's making that decision and how it's affecting the people, who are running the data centers today. Bottom line, if you're, if in networking, I'll take networking because that's near and dear to my heart. You've been doing that same networking the same way for 20 years. There is an issue there. Okay. The times have moved on, times have changed. You got to be able to evolve with it. Getting involved, and once again, this is a cloud architecture. So when someone asks you, what's your plan for cloud? You say, we're ready to go. We already have it instituted in our data center. And then you can explain to them what cloud is, that it's not a destination, it's an operating model. The other thing I think of is back, once again, going back last decade, outsourcing became really big, and they came and said, hey, you can save your organization a ton of money by outsourcing to us. These big companies, IBMs of the world came in, and basically, they fired their IT staff, and IBM rehired them. And then they started operating and said, okay, well, we need to make some changes here. And it's like, well, that has to happen on a Saturday. So there's going to be extra charges for that. And after a few years of doing outsourcing, they realized that their costs were a lot more than what they'll have if they just ran it on their own. So I think sometimes people say we're going to cloud without really understanding what the ramifications are. And as Willis said, if you have no way to back out from that, you kind of go in, the Hotel California, you check in, but you can't leave. So it's best. What we find is best is to hedge your bets, have the ability. Maybe you have requirements to have things on-prem. A lot of regulatory requirements are that you can put things out in the cloud. So it's best to once again consider that if you're all into cloud, this is a great way. This is a great stepping stone to get yourself there. And after using it and consuming it for a while, it may be that the powers that be say, you know what, we really don't see the value of going all into cloud. Maybe they pull back a little bit. As Will said, maybe they only put the appropriate workloads out into the cloud.
We have one in the chat that I'll address. I was starting to type, but I figure, Mitchell, I'll just answer it if that's okay. So it's a couple things to consider, and sort of the direct answer is if you're going to do VCF on VxRail today for deployment purposes, it is a greenfield opportunity.
Can you
repeat
repeat his question so people just listening can?
Oh, sorry about that. Everybody's not looking at the chat. So Mitchell says, if I already have some elements of VMware Cloud Foundation, such as I have vSAN and I have vSphere, how hard is it to move to this platform, right? So, and this is assuming, right, you have something like VxRail. If it's just the software SKUs, I guess either way, the answer would still be the same. It is a greenfield opportunity, because what the way we want to do this is, if you go back to the day zero, where I told you the software defined data center manager, that manager is going to do the actual deployment of both the VxRail and the software. We do not have the capability to say, bring in an SDDC manager and say an already deployed VxRail environment or an already deployed vSAN ready node environment. I want to pull that in and the SDDC manager manage day two only. I think that answers your question. Now, in terms of how easy is it to get further, that's where you get back to, from an HCI perspective, that's a benefit of being scalable. Like if you already have something like VxRail, or if you have something like vSAN ready node, you can start with a smaller cluster, like start with your management cluster, and then just find the right opportunity in your environment to where maybe you're just bringing on another workload, maybe you're getting ready to retire some other systems. There are ways that your account team can look into your environment, and we like to drive data-driven conversations. So we can do things like run live optics reports with Encompass data, right, to kind of show you, well, here's an opportunity to where if you like the vision of this, if this is where you see yourself going to in the future, we can still leverage that gear, but we would have to figure out a way to implement it in more of a greenfield fashion, right? So just double clicking one more time there, like let's just say you have a 4-node VxRail cluster today, and you realize that you want to do VCF on VxRail. And so that means you already have vSphere, you already have vSAN, and you're getting ready to add NSX. But you don't want to do it all as disparate pieces and parts. You don't want to construct it all. Maybe it's just a matter of let's figure out a way to do data migrations. This is all things that the collective team here, Dell, VMware, and 27 Virtual can work out how do we do that, right? With some services to show you how to, let's just migrate it here to a particular location in your environment. And then the team can then stand up a greenfield environment on your existing gear. When I say existing, I mean like somewhere to let the data rest while we're building that greenfield environment.
All right. Do we have any other questions, thoughts? Feel free to raise your hand in the Zoom session and we will open up your mic. Or you could ask it in the chat as well. We probably got time for one more.
And while we're waiting for questions to come in, I mean, I realized in the short amount of time I had that I really went through VMware's portfolio. I really could take well over an hour on each of those products that I mentioned. So once again, please reach out to 27 Virtual. Ask for more information specifically about that, especially if you have one responsibility and say the network security guys aren't so sure. Please ask us and help us to explain to them how it will be of advantage to them to learn, you know, the new, better way to do things, the software-defined data center. Also, if you go out to hands-on lab, hands-on-labs at VMware.com, you can test drive all our products, right? That's the beautiful thing about software-defined. Go out there. If there's something you want, you know, you're not sure how it works, go out there, spin it up. You can see software-defined data centers in action. You can test out NSX. You can test out vSAN. You can test out SD-WAN, whatever we make, you know, HCI, not HCI, sorry, VDI, whatever we make, you can go out there and play with it. And I'll also give a short plug that VMworld is coming up. Please, it's free to attend. It's virtual this year. So if you want some more information, that's also a good place to go learn more about what VMware is doing.
All right, I don't see any more questions or hands coming in. So I'm gonna go ahead and say thank you guys so much. We'll give you a few minutes back to have a break before your probable next Zoom meeting that you're going to have at 2 o'clock. So thank you again for being here, and please reach out to brent.kaplan@27virtual.com. And we would love to answer any questions that you have, dispel any of the mysteries associated with any of the software-defined platform that you may have. But we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.